In 1953, a CIA scientist named Frank Olson fell to his death from a hotel window in New York City. For 20 years, his family believed he committed suicide. But when they exhumed his body in 1994, forensic experts found evidence of homicide. What drove Frank Olson to that window wasn't depression or mental illness. It was LSD. LSD that his own colleagues had secretly slipped into his drink as part of a program so twisted, so unethical, that when Congress finally exposed it in 1975, they called it one of the darkest chapters in American intelligence history. This is the story of MKUltra, the CIA's 20-year quest to control the human mind. The year was 1953, and America was terrified. Reports were flooding in from the Korean War about American prisoners of war confessing to crimes they never committed, denouncing their own country on camera with dead eyes and monotone voices. The CIA was convinced the Soviets had cracked the code of human consciousness itself. They believed enemy agents had developed techniques to turn anyone into a programmable puppet. So, on April 13, 1953, CIA Director Allen Dulles authorized the most ambitious and disturbing psychological warfare program in American history. MKUltra wasn't the CIA's first attempt at mind control. Two earlier programs, Project Bluebird and Project Artichoke, had already been experimenting with hypnosis and interrogation techniques since 1950. But MKUltra was different. It was bigger, more ruthless, and had virtually unlimited funding. The man chosen to lead this dark crusade was Sidney Gottlieb, a chemist whose technical services staff would soon become the most feared division within the CIA. The scope of MKUltra was staggering. Over its 20-year existence, the program infiltrated more than 80 institutions across the United States and Canada. Universities, hospitals, prisons, mental health facilities. Anywhere the CIA could find human subjects to experiment on. The researchers didn't just work in sterile government labs. They embedded themselves in the very institutions Americans trusted most, turning healers into torturers and teachers into unwitting accomplices. But what exactly was the CIA trying to achieve? Their goals read like something from a science fiction nightmare. They wanted to develop the perfect truth serum, a chemical key that could unlock any secret locked away in the human mind. They sought to induce complete amnesia, allowing them to erase inconvenient memories or create false ones. Most chilling of all, they wanted to discover if they could program human beings like computers, creating assassins who would kill on command and remember nothing afterward. The methods they used were as varied as they were horrifying. LSD became their drug of choice, but they also experimented with mescaline, barbiturates, and powerful painkillers. These chemicals were often combined with hypnosis, electroshock therapy, and sensory deprivation. Some subjects were kept in complete darkness and silence for weeks. Others were subjected to verbal and sexual abuse designed to break down their psychological defenses. The line between experimentation and torture became so blurred that it essentially disappeared. The CIA's hunger for LSD was insatiable. In 1953 alone, they spent over $240,000 purchasing the drug from Sandoz, a Swiss pharmaceutical company. In today's money, that's more than $4 million spent on a single psychedelic compound. They stockpiled it like ammunition, distributing it to researchers across the country who would use it on thousands of unwitting subjects. The victims of these experiments came from society's most vulnerable populations: psychiatric patients who couldn't consent to treatment, prisoners who had no choice but to participate, drug addicts who were promised fixes in exchange for their cooperation, prostitutes who were told they were helping their country. What united all these people was their powerlessness, their inability to say no to men in white coats who claimed to represent legitimate medical research. One of the most disturbing aspects of MKUltra was Operation Midnight Climax. The CIA established a network of safe houses in San Francisco, disguised as ordinary apartments, but equipped with hidden cameras and one-way mirrors. They hired prostitutes to bring unsuspecting men to these locations, where the women would slip LSD into their drinks. CIA operatives would then observe from behind the mirrors, documenting how the drug affected their victims' behavior, judgment, and memory. The men had no idea they were being drugged, watched, and recorded. They thought they were simply paying for sex, but they had unknowingly become test subjects in a government mind control experiment. If you're finding this information as disturbing as we are, make sure to subscribe to stay informed about the hidden histories that shaped our world. We're just getting started with the most shocking aspects of this program. The international scope of MKUltra reached its most horrific peak in Canada through Sub-Project 68. Dr. Ewan Cameron, a respected psychiatrist at McGill University, received CIA funding to develop what he called psychic driving. His technique involved putting patients into drug-induced comas for weeks at a time, then subjecting them to electroshock therapy at intensities 30 to 40 times stronger than normal treatment. While the patients lay unconscious, Cameron would play recorded messages on endless loops, attempting to erase their existing personalities and implant new ones. The results were catastrophic. Patients who entered Cameron's program as functional human beings emerged as blank slates, unable to recognize their own families or remember their own names. Many never recovered their memories or their identities. They became living ghosts, trapped in bodies that no longer contained the people they used to be. Cameron's work represented the ultimate goal of MKUltra, the complete destruction and reconstruction of human consciousness. But the program's darkest moment may have been the death of Frank Olson. In November 1953, Olson attended a CIA retreat where Sidney Gottlieb secretly dosed the participants' drinks with LSD. Olson, who had been working on biological weapons, began experiencing severe psychological distress. He talked about quitting his job and exposing government secrets. 9 days after being drugged, Olson crashed through the window of his hotel room and fell to his death. For decades, the official story was suicide. Olson's family was told he had suffered a mental breakdown. But when they had his body exhumed in 1994, forensic experts found evidence that suggested homicide. The skull fracture pattern was inconsistent with a fall. There were signs of blunt force trauma that occurred before the fall. The family's decades-long fight for the truth revealed that Frank Olson may have been murdered to prevent him from exposing MKUltra to the world. The program's secrecy was so complete that it might have remained hidden forever if not for one crucial mistake. In 1973, as congressional investigations were closing in, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered the destruction of all MKUltra documents. Thousands of files were shredded, burned, and lost forever. But a clerical error saved one cache of documents that had been misfiled in the financial records. These 20,000 surviving documents, discovered through Freedom of Information Act requests, provided the first concrete evidence of the program's existence. The revelations that emerged in 1975 during the Church Committee hearings shocked the nation. Americans learned that their own government had been conducting Nazi-style medical experiments on its own citizens. The Nuremberg Code, established after World War II to prevent exactly this kind of abuse, had been completely ignored. Informed consent was non-existent. The ethical standards that were supposed to govern medical research had been abandoned in the name of national security. The legal consequences were minimal compared to the scope of the crimes. The Olson family received a $750,000 settlement and an apology from President Gerald Ford. Other victims received smaller compensations or nothing at all. Many of the researchers involved faced no consequences whatsoever. Sidney Gottlieb retired comfortably, his reputation intact within intelligence circles. The institutions that had hosted the experiments simply claimed they had been deceived about the true nature of the research. The cultural impact of MKUltra extended far beyond the courtrooms and congressional hearings. The program became a source of countless conspiracy theories, some grounded in fact, others spinning into complete fantasy. Writers, filmmakers, and musicians drew inspiration from the horror of government-sponsored mind control. The idea that the CIA could turn anyone into a programmed killer became a recurring theme in popular culture. Some connections between MKUltra and other historical events remain speculative but disturbing. Charles Manson, the cult leader who orchestrated the 1969 murders in Los Angeles, had been imprisoned in facilities where MKUltra experiments were conducted. While no direct evidence links Manson to the program, researchers have noted similarities between his methods of psychological control and techniques developed by MKUltra scientists. The possibility that mind control research contributed to one of America's most notorious crimes adds another layer of horror to an already dark story. The program officially ended in the early 1970s, but its legacy continues to haunt American intelligence operations. The techniques developed by MKUltra researchers influenced interrogation methods used in later conflicts. The ethical violations exposed by the program led to new oversight mechanisms, but questions remain about what other secret programs might still be operating beyond public scrutiny. Recent document releases have revealed that our understanding of MKUltra remains incomplete. In 2024, the National Security Archive released additional files that shed new light on the program's scope and methods. Each new revelation confirms that the full extent of the CIA's mind control experiments may never be known. The destroyed documents took their secrets to the grave, leaving countless victims without answers and the American public without the complete truth. The survivors of MKUltra lived with the consequences of these experiments for the rest of their lives. Many never learned why they had been subjected to such treatment. Others spent decades fighting for recognition and compensation. Their stories serve as a reminder of what happens when scientific research operates without ethical constraints, when national security becomes an excuse for human experimentation, and when the people meant to protect us decide that some citizens are expendable in the name of a greater good. But perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the MKUltra story isn't what we know about it. It's what we still don't know. With most of the documents destroyed, we may never understand the full scope of what the CIA accomplished or attempted. We may never know how many people were subjected to these experiments, or how many of the techniques they developed are still being used today. The program that began with the goal of controlling minds may have succeeded in ways we're only beginning to understand, and the files that could tell us the truth are buried in classified archives or lost forever in the ashes of Sidney Gottlieb's bonfire.